Zack, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it.
When you run for higher office or run for re-election, you run on what you've accomplished. What is it that you have accomplished that says Zack Reed should be the next mayor of Cleveland?
First of all, thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to sit down with you. I mean, you're one of the seasoned veteran reporters here in the city of Cleveland, so getting this opportunity is fantastic for me. I would say, first of all, it would be Kinsman Road. Because in 2001, when I was appointed to be the council person in Ward 3 at that particular time, I went to the mayor and said to the mayor, if I'm going to change the face of Mount Pleasant, I've got to change Kinsman Road. And he agreed. But then I also said that it can't be in asphalt because 100,000 cars go up and down that street every single day. It's got to be in concrete. So right now, when you drive Kinsman Road from 93rd to 154th, it's in concrete. Because I not only had the vision to say we needed to do Kinsman Road, but we needed to do it in concrete. And this is a freshman council person going to a veteran mayor and asking a veteran mayor to give us $11.5 million to do Kinsman Road. What spurred from that? What was the spinoff from doing Kinsman Road? A.J. Rickoff. So we got the third school built under issue 14, built on 146 in Kinsman. What else happened? We got a new county building built on 139th and Kinsman. Right now, all the senior services in the county are in that building on 139th and Kinsman. What else was done? We were able to get a brand new 40-unit senior building built on 138th and Union, which is called Union Court. So just because we did Kinsman Road, there was a $50 million spinoff from there. And that started the renaissance of Mount Pleasant. And then came the foreclosure. And since Mount Pleasant is the #1 residential ward in the city of Cleveland, when everybody else was catching a cold, we caught pneumonia, and we're still trying to revive ourselves from that foreclosure crisis.
What do you see as the major issues for the next mayor, and what are your plans to address them?
Well, it's violence, it's safety. There's no other issue that faced the city of Cleveland and the residents of the city of Cleveland, no matter where you're at. I don't care if you're in West Park, I don't care if you're in Collinwood, I don't care if we're here, right here in Glenville or in Mount Pleasant. Safety of the citizens of the city of Cleveland is the most important issue facing them today. And they know that we haven't done much to deal with it. I mean, you look right now, you and I are being interviewed, you're interviewing me right now, we stand at 96 homicides already this year. 4 more unfortunate people that get killed in the city of Cleveland means that we've gone 4 consecutive years of 100+ homicides. You look in the South Hills neighborhood, the fact that those rash of burglaries that were going on. You think about the neighborhoods that can't grow because of the violence, because of the unsafe conditions. So that is the #1 issue. But it's not only the #1 issue facing the citizens of the city of Cleveland, it is the #1 priority supposedly for government, no matter if you're a federal government, state government, or local government. The first responsibility of government is to protect their people. And we have not done this under this administration.
We talk very often about, and we know the success of downtown Cleveland. Have the city's neighborhoods paid the price for the success of downtown Cleveland?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Well, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is a man who came in and said that we're going to make downtown 7/24. I mean, 7 days a week, 24-hour destination place, right? And I think we've done a very good job of doing that. But what was the promise to the people in the neighborhoods? There was no promise to the people in the neighborhoods. And that's why you see these neighborhoods that continue to deteriorate. The fact that 56,000 people have left the city of Cleveland since he's taken office. Now you can say downtown has grown, but our neighborhoods have seen the flight of people moving almost on a daily basis. It's because we have not sat down and put together a plan that I'm going to put together that says that we are going to connect the renaissance of downtown. And in no way we're going to stop the renaissance of downtown. I think a strong city has to have a strong downtown. But you can't say you have a whole city if the neighborhoods are suffering. More people live in the neighborhood than will ever live downtown. And what's got to happen is we got to put a plan together that takes the downtown renovation, connected to the uptown renovation, and bring those two together. We have not done that.
Do you have a plan?
Oh, we got a real plan. I mean, it starts with public safety. When you think about the aspect, and the best example I give people is giant eagles. We're two giant eagles. The giant eagles on the west side of the city of Cleveland on West 140th, and there's the giant eagle on 116th and Buckeye. Both giant eagles closed. The one on 116th had 20 homicides in a 3-year period of time and in a 1-mile radius. Even before it closed, people were saying, I don't go to that giant eagles because I feel unsafe. So they would go to the giant eagles in Beechwood. So the plan has to be that you've got to create an environment where businesses want to move in, where businesses feel a need, that we want to fill a void in those communities so that the people in those communities have the same thing that other communities have. And the best example I tell people is West 65th. My good friend Matt Zone talks about the fact that it was the most dangerous census tract in the city of Cleveland. And what happened when the government stepped in? The government stepped in and created this environment for safety, and the private sector stepped in, and now look at it today. And that's what we're not seeing. We've got to see where the government comes in and does what government is supposed to do. That's why it's important to hire more police officers. That's why it's important to have surveillance cameras. That's why it's important to put people back to work. When you create that environment, then you have a true public-private partnership. And that's when you see the public sector and the private sector come in. And we've got so many examples of that, John. You got Tremont. Tremont wasn't Tremont 20 years ago. Look at it today. You look at Ohio City. Ohio City wasn't Ohio City 20 years ago. So what you've got to do is you've got to have a person in that mayor's office that understands that all 34 neighborhoods in the city of Cleveland deserve to have prosperity. And that has not happened under this administration.
I was looking at your website, and you went over some of the key issues being safety, job creation, and leadership. Under safety, you talk about adding 400 police officers. By my count, that would be almost $50 million. How do you pay for that?
And you have the money. First of all, we just raised
$80 million from the tax hike, but that would account for most of it.
Well, first of all, we're not going to hire these people. We're not going to hire 400 police officers in 1 year. That's first and foremost. Second of all, you got to look at the aspect that we just raised people's income tax from 2% to 2.5%. You do a damn good job of coming down and seeing City Hall. So you've seen the budget process work. So the last day in January, the mayor has to submit a budget to the city council by law. On April 1st, which happens to be my birthday, we have to approve it or disapprove it. This year, we approved a budget that said, from the mayor, that said he wanted 1,601 police officers in the city of Cleveland. We approved it. As you and I are sitting here today, we're under that number by 168 police officers. You can't even justify it. You asked for 1,601, city council approved you, and now you're under 168. So you take that savings. So instead of the 400, you look at right now, I only got to find the money for 232. That's 20 million. So the money's there. The problem is, John, is the priority's not there. See, the priority for public safety is not there. Under this administration, over 1,200 people have lost their lives in the 12 years that he's been mayor. Think about that, John. You've been mayor for 12 years. Over 1,200 people have lost their lives. And you look at that aspect, that means every year that he has been mayor of the city of Cleveland, over 100 people, at least 100 people on average, have lost their life. You would think that since that is the first priority of government, we do something about it. That every day we would just go into that office and say, we have got to do something about this violence. We've got to do something about the homicide. In the neighborhood that we're in right now, just look what happened 2 days ago, when a police officer had to do what no police officer wants to do, and that's shoot somebody. But why did he have to do it? There were several people shooting, having a gunfight in the middle of the day at 4 o'clock. When you were working, I was working, most people were working, senior citizens probably at home getting ready to watch your newscast. And what happens? They ring out with gunfire. And who do they have to call? The police. In the middle of the day. When you see those things happen in communities like this community, it means to the business community, I don't want to invest there. It means to people who want to move there, I don't want to move there. And if you don't get businesses to move there, you can't create jobs. And you've heard me say it once, I'll say it again. Nothing stops a bullet like a job. When people go to work, you don't see all these heinous crimes in our community. But when people are not working and people are not working in this city the way I believe they should be and the way they will be under my administration, you will continue to see this violence in the city of Cleveland.
During the debate you talked about, and you just mentioned the economic development on the west side in Matt Zone's ward, you talked about the community policing going on right there. Same department, why has that not been able to be transferable to your ward?
Well, it's because you gotta come. I don't run the police force. I'm a council person, and I can raise a lot of hell. I can make a lot of suggestions, but then it comes down to the mayor himself to make that decision. And an example would be what you have right here. You just talked about Matt Zone's ward, but a better example would be Tremont. A few years ago, you know what was happening in Tremont, where people were coming out of those bars and those restaurants and they were being robbed at gunpoint, they were being carjacked, and the whole lights. And what did this administration do? Your colleague, Joe Pakanakis, did a story on it. We sent undercover cops down there. We sent horses down there. We sent motorcycles down there. We sent a number of police into that area. And we should have, because no one should be coming out of a bar, restaurant, or coming out of their homes and be carjacked. At the same time, right here in Glenville, 17 people had been killed at the same time, John. It was one less person than the entire west side of the city of Cleveland that had died right here in Glenville. And I walked this street, 105, and asked, have you seen beat cops? They said, we've seen a few beat cops. I said, have you seen a horse? They said, Councilman, we haven't seen a horse since the Kentucky Derby. And the reason I bring that example is, the only way you get horses from downtown out into the community, that has to come from downtown, because they're in traffic. The only way you get motorcycles from downtown out into the community has to come from downtown, because they're in traffic. You see, the responsibility has to say to the mayor, I'm going to head up that way. I don't want to see the people in Lee Harvard continue to have double-digit homicides. I don't want to see the people right in Ward 6 right now, that right now as you and I are talking, that already have 13 homicides this year. So it takes a person in that office that truly believes this #1 issue, by far. There's not another issue. Every poll, I know he's doing polls, I've been doing polls since 2015. There is not another issue that even comes close to public safety. And you would think that this mayor would step up and say, I got to do something about the unsafe conditions in this city. And he's chosen not to. And what's his remedy? You know what his remedy is, because you've done a damn good job of showing it. It's a $2.4 million dirt bike track. It's a $2.4 million dirt bike track. He believes by building a $2.4 million dirt bike track that 95% of the people in the city of Cleveland will not use is going to solve the unsafe conditions in our community. And I'm saying to the people that are listening, that are watching this interview right now, if you want a $2.4 million dirt bike track, you go vote for him. But if you want to see safety in our communities, police officers walking the beat, police officers riding bikes, police officers interacting with the people in the community, then you vote for me.
On the job creation on your website, you talked about the Hire a Youth campaign for kids 14 to 18, training formerly incarcerated people in your Building Homes and Neighborhoods campaign. Noble efforts, but you know, in a city with several Fortune 500 companies, we're going for Amazon. You know, why not share a bigger picture?
Well, it's not that we don't share a bigger picture. We share a bigger picture. I mean, you look at what we've done. We spent $100 million on doing the Brown Stadium. We built a brand new hotel in the Hilton, and all the other, I think we built 6 or 7 hotels so far. Look at what we've done in the flats. That is the big picture. And I will reiterate, I'm not going to stop that. But what has it done? Because there's no connection. We still got double-digit poverty in the city of Cleveland. You now look at the fact that since we've done all of those things, the poverty rate for children has gone from 41% to 53%. So we're going to continue to do that. The difference is going to be, that's a big picture that we're going to continue to go along with. I mean, I've voted for all these big things downtown. But what didn't I vote for? Was the Q Arena. Not because when I spoke to Dan Gilbert, I said to Dan Gilbert, I said, Mr. Gilbert, he says, call me Dan. And I was the only council person they actually called. I said, I'm not against the renovation of the Q. I've said that both publicly and privately. But I'm against this deal. a deal that the mayor said was the greatest deal he's ever seen. Now you think, if we could now, look what happened since we stepped up, myself and several other council people, and then we had an initiative. Look what we got. We got homes that are now going to be built in our neighborhoods under Habitat for Humanities. We got new gymnasiums that are going to be built in our community. And hopefully we'll get these mental health facilities on the east side and the west side. So you can have the big picture, but you also got to remember that the vast majority of the people live in our neighborhoods. And therefore, you've got to figure out how to connect the uptown to the downtown. And that's the biggest example. That it took, if I'm mayor, I'm sitting down with Dan Gilbert and saying, you know, we're going to do this. But we got to figure out how we get that uptown. When you think about that 90% of the people who live in the city of Cleveland don't go to the Cavs game, 95% of the people who live in the city of Cleveland don't go to the other things that happen at Q Arena. So how do we connect the Q Arena, that is a big time engine for the city of Cleveland, to neighborhoods like Glenville and Collinwood and Mount Pleasant?
But they may not go to the arena, but they benefit from the taxes that are generated and the jobs that come from it. So you have to recognize that it is a heartbeat. You can't, the rest of the body, the blood goes to the rest of the body.
Yeah, but you got to figure out, how do we get it to come back up to the neighborhoods? I mean, you look at what they've done in Minneapolis. You look at the fact that what they said is that even if you move a business outside the central city, X amount of those revenues got to come back into the central city. Why? Because at the same time that you're talking about these individuals, these things that are happening at the Q Arena, who's providing the safety and security? Who provides the traffic? Who provides the safety if something happens with you need EMS? That's the citizens of the city of Cleveland. We don't get extra money for that. When we did all we did last year for the RNC, not like they came and gave us extra money. It's like we had to do it and hopefully get reimbursed. Look at the aspect that you leave here right now and you drive down the neighborhood streets. Look at the deterioration of those streets. But last year we paved every street downtown, and yet we're struggling to pave the streets uptown. Your guy John Walsh does a great job of the deterioration of our streets. But yet we found the money last year without getting reimbursed for it. We got reimbursed for a lot of things for the RNC, but we didn't get reimbursed for paving every street downtown. So that's what I'm saying. There has to be a connection so that when we do these things that I will continue to do, the person, Ms. Brown, that lives in West Park, Mr. Brown that lives in Ohio City, sees the connection. Because they're not going to be able to afford to go to the Cavs game, but they got to know, like you know and I know, that if it was not for the Cavs and the Indians, and as bad as the Browns have been playing, if it was not for them to be here, it would be far worse than what it is today.
Under leadership and engagement on your website, you talk about having open hours on Saturday mornings and regular town halls. Is there anything more to that, or is it just that simple?
The only way you know the problems, you got to understand what the problems are, and you got to listen to the people that have the problems firsthand. You know, I did that when I first became a council person. I had an office on 137th and Kinsman. And every Saturday I would go into that office and return phone calls and do my work, and had the door wide open for anybody who wanted to come in to talk to me. And it was great and fantastic because they would talk about the problems on their street. And therefore, I could hear firsthand what I needed to do to solve the problems on their street. What happens? I say it. Toby Cosgrove, the head of the Cleveland Clinic, wanted to come see the mayor with or without an appointment. Because he had a problem, he could be able to do that. Beth Moody, the head of Key Bank, she had a problem. With or without an appointment, she could come see the mayor. Why can't Mr. Smith over in Ward 14 come see the mayor? I mean, why can't Mr. Brown that lives in the Union Miles neighborhood come see the mayor? I mean, I am their mayor, and that's why I say all the time, I'm going to be the mayor of the entire city. I'm going to be the mayor of everyone that lives in the city of Cleveland. So therefore, if I'm going to be the mayor of everyone that lives in the city of Cleveland, they have to have access to their mayor. And you know, because you did a good job once again on the public square. You would have, if I would have been mayor, you would have never had that problem. And you know why you would never had that problem? Because they say, you know what? I'm outraged that he closed down Public Square, and he says that he's going to open up City Hall for 2 hours so you can go talk to him. I'm going to talk to him about this problem of closing down Public Square. But look, we never had one community conversation about the closing of Public Square. Not one. That's not going to happen. We're going to have transparency. We're going to have open door policy for the people in the community. I'm guaranteeing you, how hard is it for you to get public records? It's going to change under my administration. We're going to have a transparency administration. We're going to have a transparent administration. We're going to have an open door administration so that we can work together with the people in the community, the business people in the community, so that we can make sure every ward, every community, every neighborhood thrives and moves forward.
I saw a 2013 study that had Cleveland rated as one of the top 10 most bloated cities so far as number of employees to the number of residents. Are we heavy in that department? And what would you do?
Well, I think people say that all the time. It's not the fact that that people are so concerned about that we have too many employees. We can say that. But what are these employees doing? Or can we do it more efficiently? I mean, one of the things that we need to look at from our standpoint is whether or not we are doing things more efficiently. We're going to create things to make sure people don't have a job, but we need to make sure government works for people. Government's not working for people under this administration. So there's studies that can say a lot of things. I mean, there are a lot of studies out there that say a lot of things about the city of Cleveland, say a lot of things about our nation. But government has to work. And I can tell you right now, whether it's public safety, whether it's economics, whether it's roads, we haven't talked about education, it's not working. After 12 years, it's not working. And therefore, we need a new mayor.
The mayor brought up the issue of the DUIs in an ad. Said it was a question of judgment and accountability. Do you feel that's a fair question on his part?
It was a judgment. It was a poor judgment on my part. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But I've stood up, taken on that mistake. I've gone to jail because of that mistake. I've gone to Cleveland Clinic and gotten help. I've gone to the rooms of AA and gotten help. As I'm talking to you right now, I'm clean and I'm sober. And I'm ready to take on the job of being mayor of the city of Cleveland. That's the past. And ironically, he continues to talk about the past. But you know the one thing he doesn't do, John? And I look forward to hearing what he says in your interview. He doesn't talk about his record. He doesn't talk about the record of failed schools, failed safety, failed housing, failed recreational. He doesn't talk about that. He talks about the past. He constantly talks about the past. If you're running for your fourth term, you would be talking about what we haven't done and what we're doing now and what we would do in the future. You never hear him talk about that because he can't stand on that record.
You mentioned, I'm sorry.
You look at the airport. I mean, this is an economic engine, going back to the engines again in the city of Cleveland. Look at the economic engine of our airport and look at the shape it's in right now. I mean, you think about that. Under this watch, you look at what we've lost under his watch. You've lost Eaton, that was right in the city of Cleveland. They started in the city of Cleveland, right downtown, who wanted to stay here in the city of Cleveland. We lost Eaton. We lost United, a hub. We're not even a hub anymore. This all happened under his watch. You think about where that airport could take us to the next level. Look where the renaissance of Atlanta started from where? The airport. So I'm saying to you that he can continue to talk about what I've done in the past. And I've gotten help, and I'm a far better person because of it. But let's talk about his record for a change. And he doesn't want to do that.
We bid for Amazon. Would you, if you were mayor, is that a bid that you would disclose the contents of?
No doubt about it. I mean, I just talked about the transparency that my administration would have. But more so, you would think that in 10 days I could be the next mayor of the city of Cleveland. So don't you think that even if you don't want to disclose it with the general public, that someone from my someone from my campaign should know about it? Because what you're agreeing to, I may have to live with. So I would rather say, don't just do it to my campaign, let the people see it. Because they're going to have to live through it too. You signed off on a deal that we know, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, has to have some type of public subsidies in it. If I'm mayor, you would have to give some type of public subsidies to bring that many jobs to the city of Cleveland. You'd be a fool not to. But under my administration, we're gonna have a conversation about it in the general public. Why? Because then that way you get buy-in. See, that's why I say, I never said that I was against the closing of Public Square. What did I say? I said I was against the process that got Public Square closed. I never said that I was against the renovation of the queue. I was against the process and what it led to, because you're doing these things in secret. And then when you do these things in secret, then you bring it back out to the general public, and what happens? You got an outrage. You got an uproar. We're not going to agree all the time, but at least if people feel as if we're sitting around the table and we're having a conversation, they may walk away from that table not agreeing, but at least they said, I was heard. Under this administration, you're not being heard. And the Amazon is the clearest example. And we know why. Let's be totally honest. We know why they're not telling people, because we know that, once again, it is his MO and the blueprint. An MO and a blueprint that says we're going to spend as much money for businesses to come to downtown, and the people uptown are going to pay for it, and those neighborhoods are going to suffer.
But wouldn't a rising tide raise all ships in that case with Amazon?
That would be fantastic. But do we know that?
50,000 jobs, high paying.
Yeah, but if those 50,000 jobs high paying, and the thing that we get will be the income tax, and we'll take it. But I want those 50,000 jobs. I want the vast majority of those people to live in our communities and live in our neighborhoods, because I want to get a twofer. I not only want you to be able to pay an income tax, I want you to pay the property tax. So don't forget, those are the two main driving financial forces that come for the city of Cleveland. People that pay property tax and the people that pay income tax. So I'm grateful for the 2.5%, but I want your property tax money too. I don't want you to come into the city and work in the city of Cleveland and then go back out to the Gates Mills and to the Beechwoods and to the Westlakes. I want to make these neighborhoods safe again. I want to make these neighborhoods that look like a vision for people to say, I want to live in that neighborhood. I want to live in Collinwood. I want to live in Glenville. People lived here before. And you think about it, John, they're not moving out of the region. They're just moving across the border. Go talk to the people in Euclid. They'll tell you, I lived in Collinwood. I lived in Glenville, but I had to move. Go talk to the people on the southeast side of the city of Cleveland who will tell you, I lived in Mount Pleasant. I lived in Lee Harbor, but now I had to move to Warrensville. I had to move to Bedford. People on the west side, they'll tell you, I had to move to Lakewood. I don't want those people moving out. I want those people moving in.
One final question, I wanted to get back to it because you mentioned education reform. I didn't see that as education as one of the issues on the website, but would that mean you're okay with the direction that things are going with the Cleveland plan?
I don't think anybody should be happy with the direction of the Cleveland plan. I mean, you've gotten F's 2 straight years in a row. I think what you got to do in education, you got to diversify. First of all, you got to bring back vocational. You got to have a vocational school on the east side, as well as having one on the west side. You got one on the west side right now. There needs to be one on the east side. See, it goes back to this thing that I can tell people jump. When we talk about public safety, the first thing people jump to is police. I don't jump to police. You saw my website. It's the last bullet. I start with jobs. So we got to start training our young people in schools to be able to come out well educated and to be able to get a job. Secondly, you got to be able to diversify what we're teaching in the schools. I represent John Adams. I represent John Adams High School on the southeast side of the city of Cleveland. We right now have a Bard College right there. What happens when you graduate from John Adams right now under Bard College? You come out with a 2-year associate's degree. What does that do? It gives you the ability to be able to get a better job because you got a college degree. It helps your mom and dad and parents who may want to send you on to a 4-year school, that instead of paying for 4 years, you now only pay for 2. But what is happening at Bard College? I can tell you, I can show you on my phone. Person said, I'm having a hard time recruiting people to come here because of the violence. And that's the driving forces in our community. So what we need to do in education is to diversify, get a vocational school on the east side and get on the west side. We got to make them safer, but we got to be able to say to the people in those schools that we're gonna be here for you, and that's what it's about.
Simple enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it very much.